In a big, scary, connected world where those who find their niche succeed, how do you thrive if your niche is basically existing between the niches? Hello world, I'm Kami, and I'm here on YouTube because I'm a huge attention seeker. Just ask my high school bullies. And because I really want to find a way to bring together my background in creative writing and technology and being an antisocial nerd to share my own perspective on creating a meaningful and artistically fulfilling life. That sounds so pretentious, lol. Bear with me, it's not going to be that deep, okay? So I've been trying to figure out for a while what would be a good first video for my channel. After the first one, I figure you can just like go wild, do whatever. But at least initially, you have to really set the scene for your 0 viewers, right? So, as it turns out, I did have one project in the early stages that I thought encapsulated the different parts of who the Kami is really nicely. There's a creative writing project, there's unique interactions with technology in the form of this amazing piece of retro hardware over here. Hello, our friend Vivi. And there's just a little dash of the kind of overthinking that has gotten me to this point in my life. Sounds like the perfect start. Anyway, if you're already hating the amount of waffle, then it's probably safe to say you can delete me from your internet now. Yeah. Let's not do that again. If you're into electronics and hardware projects, or know someone who is, you might have heard of the BBC microbit. This cute little guy has all the processing power of a modern computer on something the size of a very cute small credit card, and is supposed to be the spiritual successor of the BBC Micro. Whew. A substantially larger machine made by Acorn Computers in the 1980s. Sounds legit, right? And succeeded in the late 80s and 90s by the Archimedes, and finally, one moment please, the RiscPC. Ta-da! In another universe, there might have been a successor machine, which might have maintained Acorn as a name you could still think of along with Apple and Microsoft, but alas, it was not to be. In fact, in Australia, where I live, pretty much nobody knows Acorn or their machines. They're most commonly found in the UK, where Acorn was based. But there were some Australian schools that took them on as educational machines in the 90s. My school had a number of Archimedes and RiscPC machines when I started attending. They were my introduction to computers in general, and I've had an attachment to them ever since. In fact, when I was about to get my own first computer, I wanted one. But as a kid, I couldn't really explain to the adults around me why it was that I wanted this weird dying breed of computer instead of, what everyone else was getting. And so I ended up with a slightly possessed Windows box, but that's another story. I still can't explain my feelings that well now. I mean, to other retro nuts, of course, it just goes without saying. But for the rest of the world, there's just a charm about these computers that has stuck with me all these years. Nostalgia, the fact that being into them in this country is kind of like being in a secret society. And there's a beauty to the design of the RiscPC in particular. Look at this really wonderful hinged cover over the, on a machine of this age, it's inevitably kind of broken. And, but the beautiful printing on the Acorn logo. And you know what? Some of the cards that you insert into the machine are called podules. Is that not the most cute word that you have ever heard that we should absolutely never allow to die? Yes, as you can see, nearly 30 years after my very first encounter, I finally succeeded in obtaining one of my own. And then the question, of course, is now what? A lot of the fascination with machines like this lies in the fact that they are a relic. This is a technological dinosaur, a museum piece. We have much more modern computers to be productive on now. But when you think about something like writing, is there really anything a modern computer could do for you that this RiscPC over here couldn't? Well, the answer to that is obviously yes. On this machine, I have a nice word processor, legally purchased, thank you very much, and incidentally, the very same word processor I first used on these school machines, which has some rudimentary formatting capabilities. On my months-old modern laptop, I have a word processor with much more advanced formatting and document organization features, which, come to think of it, I don't use because these days I do my writing in the very light document format Markdown. Highly recommended, just love it. In a very rudimentary word processor I created myself, which is rudimentary in part because I never finished building it, but the point is, for the purely mechanical process of typing your thoughts into the computer, you don't technically need more than computers were offering 30 years ago. Okay, so then you have plotting and organizing and planning software, which I also never use because it's a time sink. But if I did, there's no reason I couldn't figure out how to write some for the RiscPC. You just bang out some basic, right? You have backup software, which could also be made for the RiscPC, which can in fact get on the modern internet, although I suppose the resources it can access will be somewhat restricted, and I'm actually going to upgrade this machine eventually and find out, so stay tuned. But on that note, if I wanted to do like a bit of basic text-based research, that would be possible. When I think about it, there is just so much additional clutter on my modern machine that I could take advantage of, but if I were to write on this RiscPC, I wouldn't necessarily miss it. In fact, just as some writers benefit from dedicated writing machines like the AlphaSmart, it might even be easier to be productive on a machine lacking all the usual distractions of a modern computer. The one thing I can think of that I might need to transfer my writing back to present-day technology to achieve is getting my files into a format where I can share them with people who are not living in some bastardized form of the 90s. But essentially, there is nothing to stop me from continuing to live there for as long as I like while I'm writing. You can't stop me, so there. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to make this 30-year-old machine a working machine of the current decade, after a fashion, and write an entire novel, maybe more than one novel, entirely on it. The first draft will be written in Markdown, the same way I always work these days. I probably won't edit on there, but who knows how much this project will escalate once I get started. I'll make sure I have a word counting tool, and any other utilities I absolutely can't do without, even if I have to write them myself. Tally ho, basic. But I will still rely on my modern computer for a few things with this project. Additional backups, maybe some online research, and I'll be adding my daily word count on the RiscPC to the spreadsheet I already have set up, rather than complicating things with an additional one. You know what? Maybe I will complicate things with an additional one, just for bragging rights. I can tell you exactly how many words I've created thanks to this machine. We'll see just how useful it really is, huh? So what am I hoping to achieve with this little escapade? Well, I was sort of hoping that I might have a novel at the end of it. I know. When I started out on this adventure, my first thought was, I have this machine now and I need to come up with a project to justify it taking up a whole corner of my office. And my second was, this is an opportunity to create a kind of art I have created many, many times before, but to experience the process of creating in an entirely new way. The medium, the tools, they do matter. In this era where computer software can create credible artwork that no human brain ever touched, I feel like we're very ready to start talking about this. I guess I can already imagine some of the mundane things that are going to be different or challenging about this project. Just to begin with, there's getting used to this lovely UK keyboard with its grrr key. This unusual meeting of minds. And the quotation marks over here, that's going to take a complete rewiring of my typing brain. But there will undoubtedly be technical challenges I hadn't anticipated in my existing planning, and experiences and feelings I hadn't predicted. And maybe some of these will have an impact on the work that comes out at the end of it. I already intend for the themes in the novel to reflect the themes of its creation. That is, retro hardware trying to find a place in the modern world, which, come to think of it, is basically a novel about myself too. So there's your first plot spoiler. I will be documenting my writing process pretty vigorously for fun and content farming. This is one occasion where it might not entirely be procrastination for me to be talking about my writing. Well, Vivi, I think we'd better get to it, eh? What do you think? That's not encouraging.